So I've come full circle and brought the Systainers back into the workshop again. I took on some site work just before December and I need the Systainers to protect the tools. And I think there may be a little bit more in my future, so it seems mad to keep taking the tools out of the Systainers and putting them back in again every time I go back out to site. So I've converted this back wall, this unfinished cabinet, into Systainer Storage. I'm delighted that I managed to reuse the ply from the drawers that were here before, because it saved me an absolute ton of cash. Plywood's about 125 quid a sheet at the moment. The downside is that it's quite unsightly and I'd really like to improve that. So I'm going to utilise oak lipping across the front to make this into something a little more appealing. So I start by cutting down some oak into 18mm strips, and then I'm going to go around the border first and on these vertical dividers, and then we'll look and see what we can do to cover up these drawer fronts and build a handle in. I found some 50mm oak on the shelves that I can cut down to 19mm on the bandsaw, and then use the drum sander to bring it down to final size to match the ply, which is a hair under 18mm. So when my piece is cut to size, I can start trimming them to fit the cabinet. So I'll start by cutting a mitre on the bottom piece and on the bottom of this section, and then I can clamp that in place and mark the mitre on the top piece and then on this bit and work my way across. Incidentally, I'm using home adapted clamps here. I've got an ordinary spring clamp and a piece of inner tube. I saw this little trick on Woodworkers Guild of America, I think it was called. Apologies if I got the name wrong. You just take a piece of push bike inner tube, slide it on the end of your clamp, and hey presto, you've got a face clamp. The inner tube cost me 4 quid as opposed to having to buy new clamps, which are about 25 odd quid each. I've got a zero clearance insert in the bottom of my miter saw and a sacrificial zero clearance insert on the back so I can reduce breakout when I'm making the miters. So I'll drop this vertical piece down so it just touches lightly on the floor, clamp that in place, and then slide this bottom piece up to it just to make sure I've got the mitre in the right place, and again clamp that. Then I can use a flat back marking knife, flat on the top, and mark the exact top where I want the mitre to be. Now on each of these ends where I need to join the pieces, what I'm going to do is mitre the other way, so the join line is going to become very faint and almost hidden. So I'm going to glue these first pieces I cut on now so that when I'm working at the opposite end, I know it's all not going to move on me. And I'm not bothering with any other fixing method because I don't feel it needs it. And I don't really want pins in it. Keeping this bottom piece in place is going to be a little bit of a challenge, but I'm hoping this simple block of wood will take care of my needs. Just need to make sure that is perfectly on that corner. And that looks like it. So I'll screw this down to the floor. And that provides my clamping mechanism. Make sure that's tight all the way along. help keep the joint together. Now I can carry on cutting the rest while those dry. I'm going to take an almost identical approach with the beading on these vertical pieces. I'm just going to drop that straight cut on the very outside edge, and then once again a mark on the back with a knife, and then a straight cut on the miter saw. So moving on to the drawer fronts, I've got some space constraints here that I've got to bear in mind. That being that the Systainer below is really close to the bottom of the ply in order to get everything in. And it's actually just in line with the bottom of that runner, fractionally below it. So I can't afford to come down that far all the way across. So what I'm going to try to do is cover the rail each side, but then angle in and up level with the bottom of the plywood shelf on the underside so I don't foul that Systainer underneath. On the top section I'm going to come up about 50mm, which will suit the timber I've got really nicely. So the same size as this piece of ply that I've cut. So that'll sit roughly about there, in line with the bottom of the rail each side. And then that'll angle in up to the ply and then down again that side across the bottom. And for the top, a similar thing to match the underneath profile. I'll scoop down there and up, leaving this central section as a stick-up handle, and again scoop down this side. So that's my basic shape. This section comes away, this section and this section comes away, and this piece stays, and that will become the center handle. And I think I'm going to use the router table to do it. So I've transferred all my marks to a larger piece because I need the extra support at the end when I'm writing out all of this material. So in order to route this shape, I've knocked up this little jig to use on the router table, because by the time the shape's finished, there's almost nothing left for me to use as a reference against the fence. So the jig consists of a baseboard with some dovetail slots routed in it to take the micro jig clamps. and this little fence assembly, so I can drop my piece in, my work piece, drop my template on the top, and then when I clamp, I'm clamping both the template and the workpiece to the jig. And then I've got these handles and this extra piece as a handle at the back so that I can push it through nice and safely, my hands nicely out the way. However, that's an awful lot of material to ask a profile bit to take out. So I'm going to cut the majority of the waste out on the bandsaw first. Now, there's a couple of areas of concern which are at these up curves on the right hand side, both top and bottom, because as the router bit comes along, it's going to have a tendency to try and tear that out. So at these corners, I'm going to get really close with the bandsaw blade so I can minimize any chance of tear out. One final job at the router table is to put a little indent on the back of the handle, just something for my fingers to locate in. So I've got a ball end bit chalked up in the router, and I've got 2 stops set so I can push my piece up against the right hand stop, drop it down onto the bit, slide it across to the left hand stop, and then pull it up out the way. And here's the finished solution. Not too bad at all, I think, bearing in mind I was working within the constraints of this existing cabinet and utilising pre-existing shelves ply that were cobbled together with dominoes and adhesive. The oak trimming on the front, I think, makes it look so much better. A little disappointing, I can still see the pink of the hardwood plywood, but I'm sure I'll get used to that. The other thing that didn't come out as well as I'd hoped is the accent with the maple dowel. It just really doesn't stand or pop at all. I was thinking about using a dartwood dowel and went for the maple in the end. Maybe I should have gone for the dartwood. Anyway, the little finger pull works an absolute treat. I can get into all of them. Thanks so much indeed for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, give us a thumbs up. If you really liked it and you'd like to see more, why not subscribe? And if you absolutely loved it, then why not pop over to my Patreon page and help support me and my wonderful endeavours in the workshop. Thanks for watching and see you next time. Ta-ra.